So what are we doing today? A little bit late, como siempre, ya saben. Well, FD Signifier is back to talk to his muse, his inspiration to exist, to create. And I'm at the point where after watching this, I think FD Signifier is on his Daryl Davis arc. For those of you that don't know who Daryl Davis is this older black man who got famous by kissing ass to the Klan and pretending that he was reforming these white supremacists. Um, this is a very sick individual, very, very ill, and needs a lot of help. And nothing highlights this more than the way that he speaks to black people in comparison to the way that he speaks to, these white supremacists that he cozies up to. And FD is on that arc because if you know anything about FD Signifier, the way that he speaks about, let's say, Dr. Tommy Curry, compared to how he's speaking to this PF Jung guy, who is a Christian nationalist sympathizer. And when you call yourself a Christian nationalist, even if you say you're sympathizers, what you're saying is Christian white nationalism, right? In the US, the settler colonial project, there is no such thing of removing Christianity on a national scale in a national project with white supremacy. Let's see if I can find this. What's gonna be here? Here we go.
Daryl Davis. Sorry, my pleasure. Kwame Rose. My pleasure, Daryl Davis. 21-year-old college dropout. Most people know me from April during the Baltimore uprising. I'm the guy that confronted Geraldo Rivera.
Because you're not here reporting about the boarded up homes and the homeless people under MLK. You're not reporting about the poverty levels up and down North Avenue. You're here for the Black Riot. He got Geraldo on the right, y'all.
Since the death of Trayvon Martin, there's been a trending hashtag on social media, Black Lives Matter. And that's kind of put in the spotlight the fact that police have been killing unarmed black people. April 12th, Freddie Gray was racially profiled by 3 white officers. He got chased down, he got beat up. By the time he got to the Western Police District, his spine was 90% severed. He died April 19th. Working class people, poor black people, rich black people, and all of our allies took to the streets for almost a month and let it be known that, this was not going to be a trend here in Baltimore.
Look at your neighbor and tell him I got your back.
Where do you feel Martin Luther King sits?
So this is, whatever political and ideological differences we may have with these individuals, this is what you should be doing. You should be active in your community. You should be getting off their ass. You should not be streaming for 8 hours a day. You should not be watching a streamer for 8 hours a day. That is vile. That is disgusting. That is, Hassan Piker and this funneling of energy and especially young people willing to listen and organize, willing to grow. Hassan Piker, the Noah Sampsons, the FD Signifiers, Stam Cedar, all these people, what they do is they funnel all that energy and be like, just stay on screen and just pay me money. And that will make you feel like you're organizing. It'll make you feel like you're actually making a difference. Let's move a little further here.
Same war we were fighting that Martin Luther King fought, and the fact that when he got us on the privilege, it's a right.
It seems like a privilege if it's a whole bunch of people, like the whole swath of felons that can't vote at all, never be able to vote again.
I mean, I know a little bit about Daryl. What's your perspective on his work?
I would just want to know what the end goal is. For the layman on the patrol projects who is receiving all the ills of white supremacy and that hate, right, on a day-to-day level. How do they even begin to even think about that conversation that you're engaging in?
My end goal is to bring people together, okay? Bring white supremacists together with their nemesis. Unless we learn how to get along with one another. This country is
Why I gotta get along with them?
Pardon me?
Why I gotta get along with them?
Because they are our fellow Americans. We all have to live in this country together.
Shit.
Okay, we do. Otherwise, we're going to end up self-destructive.
So what is this museum? Who is it for?
Who's it? People like you.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not good.
You ever heard of something called intergenerational trauma?
Intergenerational trauma?
Yeah, it's trauma passed on from generations through images, symbols, different things like that. So I have a daughter, she's 1 year old. However, whenever the museum gets built, let's say she's 15,
Okay.
it's no way in hell I'm bringing her there so she can relive that and see all of that. No, not at all. What's the point?
Because in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from.
White folks need to go see that. How many robes have you collected?
Roughly, I'd say maybe 25, 26.
So the question was, how many robes have you collected? He said roughly 25, 26, and he's been doing this for decades.
How long you was doing it for?
Since about 1990.
And you only
1990.
got 26 robes.
robes?
You asked me about robes. You didn't say Klan memorabilia. I got tons of stuff.
So since 1990, which is longer than I've been alive, you've
Same.
been trying to infiltrate the Klan. But what does that do for people?
Well, I'll tell you what it does, okay? The state of Maryland had a large Klan organization.
Mm-hmm.
When the Imperial Wizard, which means the national leader,
Mm-hmm.
when he turned in his robe to me, the Maryland Ku Klux Klan fell apart. Today, there is no more Ku Klux Klan.
I beg to differ.
That's a lie.
Today, well, you can't because I got the facts, okay? Today, there is no more Ku Klux Klan in the state of Maryland.
Infiltrating the Klan ain't freeing your people.
I disagree with you.
I don't see how.
What about Timothy McVeigh?
He's in jail.
Oh, he is?
Or he wasn't killed? Something like that. So what?
Obviously, you're very uneducated about it.
Well, and you uneducated about the reality of most of the people that look like you. Every day.
Randomly brings up Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, who I believe died in prison for no fucking apparent reason. Then mocks the young man, claiming clearly you're uneducated. Later on, he mocks him about being a high school dropout or a college dropout?
Young black men and women are being snatched and kidnapped off the streets. They're ruining people's lives, right? Not rehabilitating them and sending them right back in the same neighborhoods that are already screwed up anyway. So when you say, oh, well, we need to be worried about somebody blowing something up, no, somebody's getting locked up right now that's 16 years old, that's never may see the light of day again just because they look like my skin or Kwame's skin or your skin for that matter. So I'm talking about the energy that you're putting into all them years. That's a whole lot of years to be doing that, to be stuck. It's not like a fetish.
Befriending a white person who don't have to go through the same struggles as you, me, the son in the barbershop, or that father, that's not an accomplishment. That's a new friend. That's somebody you can call.
And this is coming from a dropout.
You don't tell Steve Jobs.
All right, this is coming from a dropout, and his response is a little weak in reference to people like Steve Jobs. Eventually, eventually they get up and leave.
Listen, but the way I'm
being disrespectful now.
The way you can be in the streets building with people, right? So you
And then
right, doing nothing but collect. I said I can't shake your hand,
And you're nothing but ignorant.
right, calls him ignorant. I already made fun of him for dropping out of being a dropout. And then we have the elder here, JC Folk, coming over to basically, check, correct. Daryl Davis, the predecessor of FD Signifier.
Hey, I'm Daryl Davis. Sorry, Daryl. After that, I can't shake your hand right now.
Okay.
I just want to be. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I just want to say a couple of things to you about the interactions that I just saw. First of all, man, you an old head like me. I remember the day when Martin Luther King was shot. I was 6 years old, and on that
Skip a little bit.
for you to come to Baltimore and disrespect some of the people who are on the front line here in Baltimore in the way that you did is reprehensible. Just like the young man said to you, you could have done a whole lot more work in the black community from the 90s to now to move our people forward rather than come in here trying to uplift somebody that you got a hood off of their head. They still wear those hoods. And while you were saying the KKK doesn't exist, I looked up the KKK in Maryland, and there's a Klan group in Maryland right now still very active. You look it up yourself.
So I'm saying you're calling somebody ignorant. You might want to check your own ignorance around this before you start calling my young men in Baltimore who are out here putting their lives on the line. Kwame marches hard with me in Baltimore. Kwame gets arrested in Baltimore. Where were you when the marches were going on? You were sitting with your Klan people and disrespecting my people. If you can't respect black people and respect my people for doing the work that they're doing, take your ass and you hang out with them. Freddie Gray is dead. Tyrone West is dead. Anthony Anderson is dead. All that shit you talking about, these KKK hoods, who gives a shit? I don't give a shit about you or your KKK hoods. Don't come to Baltimore doing this shit again.
Yep.
Don't come back here.
I can't talk now?
You can talk, but don't talk that shit to me.
Sit down and be quiet. Let me talk.
Get the fuck out of my face, man.
See how you are?
And see, he will never ever speak to a Klansman in that manner. This is normally how
we never see a black.
He's chilling with them, hanging out with them. Do you think he ever once speaks to a Klansman with that type of disrespect? Of course not. And again, why am I bringing this up? The way that FD Signifier speaks and allows others to speak about, again, individuals like Dr. Tommy Curry, who wrote The Man Not, focusing on black male studies, on what discrimination and the experience of black children, young black men, and black men in general, highlighting that the stigma and anti-blackness towards black men that we have is now being pushed even by black women, liberal, feminist black women. They're contributing to the propaganda in vilifying black men. When the numbers and statistics don't line up with the propaganda that's being pushed, that somehow, they are the true evil, that they are trying to gain power in terms of patriarchy, aligning with whiteness, when no numbers, whether it's voting or statistics, line up with that at all. But it's a white liberal, almost psyop to push this forward. So here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. This is FD Signifier in his first appearance with PF Jung. Remember when the young man was speaking to Daryl Davis, the one that ended up getting up and leaving? He said, this, spending all this time around the Klan and only being able to get 25 robes. This sounds more like a fetish. Now listen to how FD talks about PF Jung.
I have always had an affinity for interestingly scary white people.
Let's see. Here we go.
I have always had an affinity for interestingly scary white people. My wife will tell you, you are playing a role right now that has been played by many a super intelligent, somewhat oppositionally opposed, politically opposed, but sincere white guy that I've had. There's been a different muse like that for me since probably I graduated from college and I started interacting with white people again for the first time. And so I'm not quite sure where that comes from specifically, but I know what I appreciate. I think that I think you're sincere in the ways in which we disagree. Some of the ways in which we disagree upset me and like scare me. But I think and part of the reason why they scare me is because they do come from sincere places. Okay. And I also tend to think you're sincere in the ways that we agree. Mm-hmm. And then also you're funny and you're good at making content. And you provide a angle and a viewpoint on a certain space in the world, a certain walk of life, a certain perspective. That's the best one. Edit all that, the other shit out. You provide a certain perspective that is not easy for me to access because of how I set my personal sphere up,
And then
Nationalist Christian. I come from a cultural Christian. I believe in the value of religion.
Hold on. Before we skip to the second part, keep in mind, he calls him FD Signifier, the new Daryl Davis, calls PF Jung his muse. Goes so far to say, talk to my wife and she'll tell you you're playing this role that many white men have played in the past. What the fuck does that mean? That's weird. I don't understand how you say anything other than that's some weirdo fucking shit. Let me see something real quick. Yeah, I see what I'm doing. All right. We'll do this. That's some weird fucking behavior. All right, we're gonna go up here. We'll do that instead. At first, I thought that I was reaching. At first, I thought, I'm like, damn, like, am I misreading the situation when you call another man, especially when you're talking about race, when you call a white man your muse, M-U-S-E, your muse. That's a little weird for me. That's a little deep. And I'm not speaking, like, at first I'm like, is this internalized homophobia that I'm kind of uncomfortable with in the way that he's speaking about him? And then we pulled up the Daryl Davis clip on a previous stream. And I saw that this, young black activist was saying, this seems like a fetish. Spending all that time around these white supremacists. And I'm like, oh shit. If FD is saying, talk to my wife about this, she knows what's up. And here you are calling him your muse. That is like a fetish. So I was like, all right, I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see the parallels with Daryl Davis and FD Signifier. So we'll continue here, and it'll lead us to their latest debate. Yeah, Russell, Daryl Davis, he appeared on Joe Rogan. So still back in the day, if memory, serves here, where Joe Rogan was still not like full like mask off. He was still pretending to be like a chill regular dude, a fucking, an average Joe, right? Around the time when I would watch him mainly for like random MMA shit and just dumbass jokes. But I felt like Daryl Davis was kind of like around the time Daryl Davis' appearance on Joe Rogan Experience was around the time that Joe Rogan was starting to lean more into politics, which is unfortunate because he's a fucking moron and he's rich as fuck, so he's always going to advocate for capital. So the second part here is the part that really disgusted me.
Fundamentalist Christian. I call myself a cultural Christian. I believe in the value of religion. Fundamentalist Christian. I call myself a cultural Christian. I believe in the value of religion. I'm sympathetic to Christian nationalism, much to soy pills.
There we go. I'll be with you for a second, and then you say
fine
something like that.
Okay, there we go. That's my point.
No, I don't even want to get into it.
Agreed. All right. Agreed.
I don't even want to get into it. This white man that you called your muse tells you that he's sympathetic to Christian nationalism, and Christian nationalism cannot be separated from white nationalism here. You just can't. It's impossible. And yet, instead of confronting him, when you have still about another 45 minutes left in this conversation, you're like, no, I don't, no. I'm a coward. I can't push you on that. I can't risk making this white man upset.
Just so you know, you're platforming someone who platformed a Christian nationalist. So just, yeah.
I mean, like that's
canceled.
Says canceled, right? Mocks him. Oh, you're canceled now. Because you're cozying up to a Christian nationalist sympathizer who platforms actual Christian nationalists that are all white nationalists. So, just keep in mind, these are all the times that he's had conversations, not debates, conversations with Christian nationalists. Ignore the whole versus thing. They're not really debating. They're not truly debating. Because this guy, PF Jung, is all about, let's have conversations. Let's not debate. Let's have conversations. Because he's a fucking spineless fucking weirdo. We'll go over one shortly, but let's start with the FD Signifier. Their second, conversation. Then we'll pull up one of his conversations with a Christian nationalist.
My perspective has changed a lot in the last few years, where I've become more sympathetic to the, I don't know what you would label your, I don't even call it ideology, but just perspective of race consciousness sounds too, is that too much?
I mean, it's
the reality of race, maybe.
Ooh, then you get into race realism.
Okay, right. I know. There's no way to do that. I know. It's the whole thing's so fucking fraught.
Race consciousness is probably the best term.
Okay.
I'm in a similar boat as you in that the terms, because of the way these conversations go and certain factions involved closer to your end of the table, every time a term comes,
there's some goofs on your end too.
Well, yeah, but we
shit.
don't pervert the terminology. You know, so like woke and DEI. Like DEI is just N-word now. That's just the way.
Oh my god.
like
some of your takes are JJ McCullough level bad. Okay, saying, although you would agree with it, you did when JJ said Dave Chappelle is right wing, and I'm like, please stop, please. You would agree though, wouldn't you, that Dave Chappelle's right wing?
No, I don't think that. Dave Chappelle is the transphobe, and transphobes can be very liberal.
Okay,
Dave Chappelle Dave Chappelle is really just the transphobe. I think Dave Chappelle's probably actually.
Dave Chappelle's pretty black conscious.
He's very black conscious.
He talks about shooting heroin addicted white people all the time. It's hilarious.
That was a pretty funny joke. Buckshot.
Yep.
That's great. He's an all-time great. I wish he would like get back to his roots. But we're getting off topic.
That's fair. Yeah. The point of
he truly does wish that Dave Chappelle would get back to his roots, because Dave Chappelle grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Dave Chappelle grew up relatively well off. He talks about how when he was around other black artists that would talk about their struggles growing up, he would stay quiet because he didn't want to risk informing them or revealing that he grew up all right. Now, in comparison to the other white people around him, he was lacking for sure. He wasn't as wealthy, rich as they were, but he never struggled. That's why when he was mocking, working class and poor black people, you saw that maliciousness that eventually appeared in his transphobic jokes.
But we were bringing up the fact that the terminology is always being perverted. You were trying to get to the fact that you're more sympathetic to race consciousness, or
the idea of treating everyone like an individual is, I do still think it's an aspirational goal, and like one that we still should be striving towards. Like in this conversation, I'm not treating you as an avatar of black people. Like I've seen your videos. I have some at least limited understanding of who you are as a person and all that. Mm-hmm. And I'm leaning much more into that than just some stereotype of a black person. And I would think you wouldn't be talking to me if it wasn't the other way.
I don't. As I said before, I don't talk to white people that I don't have some insight into, more than once.
Right.
So keep that in mind. He says, I don't normally talk to white people that I don't have insight in. Like if he's not aware of them, if he doesn't know their work. In the first interview, when he was calling him his muse, he was saying, I'm obsessed essentially with you, with the work that you're putting out. I'm fascinated by it. You allow me to look into another world, right? And that's where the kind of the weird fetishization is coming from. He's gonna lie about this later on. Or what he's saying just doesn't line up, doesn't make sense. I have to assume that it's a lie. And that he's lying, we'll see this later on with the Christian Nationalist thing, in order to stay friends with this guy, in order to cozy up with him, in order to fulfill his fetish.
So practically, yes, colorblindness is something that is a tool that we need to keep in our toolbox and move forward with. But it just is the case where it's the classic psychological rule is the more that you attack a part of your identity, the more inclination you have to resonate with that identity. So the example I always give is like gay people. It's like gay people are told from birth, oh, if you're gay, you're a satanic, degenerate, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, then when they get older, they're like, well, fuck it. We're going to get called satanic and degenerate all the time. So we'll lean into the aesthetic, like the Lil Nas and Sam Smith and all that. It's like, well, why are they doing this deeply anti-Christian shit? It's like, because it's a giant fuck you.
It's also really cool looking. Sam Smith and what's it called? I don't know. Sam Smith. Yeah, I think Sam Smith has like a lot of cool visuals, right? I feel like
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know.
But my point is that may be my degenerate nature as well, as a not at all queer person, but who's always had appreciation for queer imagery. Got a whole Beyonce video dropping probably by the end of this conversation.
Nice. But the point is, the more a certain part of your identity is attacked, the greater inclination you have to sympathize with it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm like, especially if you're a minority, in a majority country. So for black people, there's a very practical element of, it's just the nature of the demographics that there are less black people. So almost all the time, if you go into a room that's like a random distribution, you're going to be in the minority. And then not even just the identity as being attacked element, but like, if I'm in Dallas and I go into a bar and I see one other Bears fan, and this has happened, immediately we have a connection that, no one else in the room has, just by virtue of being a minority. But the attack on the identity is a big thing. And for me, FD, there's a lot of anti-white racism nowadays. And I got to be honest, I was talking to a friend.
And keep in mind, PF Jung has this whole shtick that the alt-right kind of really mastered. And you see this a lot with Sam Hyde. Mind you, I didn't know who Sam Hyde was until this whole Ethan Klein, Hassan Piker breakup occurred, where Hassan Piker tried to normalize Ethan Klein as a liberal Zionist prior to October 7th. And then October 7th happened, and Ethan Klein couldn't maintain his liberal Zionist persona and just went off the rails as the Zionist that he truly is. And Hassan Piker ignored it for about a year until Ethan started attacking Hassan directly. And then and only then did Hassan address all the Zionist propaganda that his former business partner, Ethan Klein, was spreading. So the alt-right has mastered this whole thing. Sam Hyde is the perfect example, although now he's fully masked off, hood off, of, oh, I'm just joking, I'm just being ironic. I'm being tongue-in-cheek. I'm always kind of laughing off what I'm saying in order to diminish the severity of what it is that I'm saying, in order to allow you to like let your guard down and get comfortable around my true beliefs because they're presented in a joking manner. Keep that in mind. I'll go back a little bit so you could see it happen in real time.
For me, FD, there's a lot of anti-white racism nowadays. And I got to be honest, I was talking to a friend who, I don't know if she was in Ohio or had a friend in Ohio or something like that. But basically someone, I think they were from India or something, said something to the effect of, there's too many white people in Ohio. And I'm like, all right, look, nobody loves colorblindness more than I do. Nobody loves Coleman Hughes. Nobody loves, but I felt in me, like, you're saying there's too many white people in Ohio. How about you shut the fuck up? Okay.
Did you?
No, that's how I felt. That's how I felt.
But did you though?
Yeah, I felt, it felt like now
See? Just right there. Mind you, the story is fucking ridiculous. The story is fucking ridiculous. Why is it ridiculous? Well, because he's saying, I was told I have a friend who was in Ohio who was told by this, I think, Indian woman. I'm not sure. Now, are we to assume you're saying Indian from like India? Or are you referring to like Native American? We can't tell with these people, right? But let's assume that he's saying India, referring to India, right? And FD, after hearing this, that this lady said, hey, there's too many white people here. And this guy got offended, like, fuck you, shut the fuck up. It's Ohio, it's where white people should be. Which is already weird if you know anything about settler colonialism. And you know how so much white people got to populate the area. What was required for them to be there, which was the extermination and ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population there. So you completely ignore that. You don't bring that up. You don't address that. Instead, you question whether or not he was truly offended. Because if he was truly offended about somebody saying, hey, there's too much white people here in Ohio, then you would have to acknowledge this, oh, this guy has some kind of weird, like, white pride shit going on. So you immediately, as FD, the new Daryl Davis, have to kind of question that, be like, did you though? Did you really? Are you sure about that? How were you feeling? Maybe that was your initial reaction, but truly deep inside, maybe you're better than that. Maybe. No, he's not. The fact that you're talking to someone who pretends to be educated, pretends to be some type of intellectual over here. Of course, a Jordan Peter fan, that's who PF Jung is. He's obsessed with Jordan Peterson. He'll mention that Jordan Peterson is the only person who he watches every single one of their videos. Weird. And they tell you, I think there's a lot of anti-white racism going on. Unironically. He might laugh it off, he might joke around, but unironically believes that there's a growth of anti-white sentiment, anti-white racism in the country. You're already talking to a white supremacist. You're already talking to a white supremacist, and you're trying to normalize them. For what purpose? I don't fucking know. From my understanding, FD Signifier is a larger creator, makes more money off of this. He put his children on video almost immediately to help create that parasocial relationship to build his channel. And then once he was established, immediately put his wife on a podcast, which is, again, weird fucking shit. But you can't knock the hustle.
Because I'm angry, I'm like, well, I should go to India and then go. There's too many Indian people in Mumbai. It's like of all the places where there should be a lot of white people, it's Ohio. Okay.
For all the places where there should be white people, it's Ohio. And he compares that to going to Mumbai and complaining about there being too many Indians. Now, I don't know the history of Mumbai. I don't know the history of India. I know it's complicated. However, I have no knowledge of Indians going to Mumbai, being on the verge of starvation, being assisted by the indigenous population in Mumbai, and then turning around and massacring them, attempting to exterminate them, their access to food, use chemical warfare against them, primitive chemical warfare, but nonetheless chemical warfare, biological warfare, excuse me. I've never heard of that. So at any point in time, you can't say there's too many people on this fucking continent, too many white people on this fucking continent. And yes, that includes Ohio. But again, it's that settler realism where it's like, no, we belong here. This is where we should be. It's that, again, that nativism. That nativism. Of, no, this is where white people belong. Because we exterminated, eradicated the indigenous people that were here, that resisted us. And then those that survive, we put on open air concentration camps that inspired fucking Zionists. Is FD going to bring this up at all? Like, hey, you don't even fucking belong here. Of course not. Of course not. Because that would upset his white muse.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
And so, and then
not in like Cincinnati or.
Yeah. And then that's just one, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back of just that plus all of the bullshit DEI stuff. Mm-hmm. Be less white. Whiteness is the devil. Whiteness is evil. You know, all that shit. It's like that shit piles on.
Does it?
It's yeah.
See, he's saying this story that I heard secondhand that could have been completely made up, that I could be making up myself right now because, hey, I wasn't there. I have that excuse. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. A secondhand story. This is how sensitive and fragile these white supremacists are. That their friend could tell them a story that might have not even fucking occurred. And they're like, that's it. There's a white genocide occurring. That's it. Anti-white racism is rampant. I'm done with it. They're trying to vilify whiteness. The tool and instrument that we use to oppress others, they're trying to vilify it. We had the fucking Italians and the Irish betray their solidarity with black folks, with brown people, in order to obtain whiteness. They're vilifying that. They're vilifying whiteness. Can you believe it? And immediately FD's like, really? Really? Do you really believe that? Are you sure? This is some weird fetish ass shit. And it's going to continue.
I'm telling you it does. On my psyche. I see it and I just go, dude, it's so tiring. Constantly.
So no, this is, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, but it's
no, but my broader point is, you may not like the reasons for it, but that is part of why I'm sympathetic. I'm more sympathetic to like, damn, you know, if all of the people who are in the most neglected neighborhoods are all black, you could say, well, it's just poor. It's just poor is the problem, which again, on paper and in practice, I believe is true. Like black people are disproportionately poor. So programs that are dedicated just to poor people will disproportionately benefit black people. But you can't strip the element of like, there are people in the inner city in Chicago who have been impoverished since, you know, forever. And to just
in Chicago started, well, you know, I can tell you the history as to when forever actually starts.
Sure. Well, there's
we're not
many
going to do
different
that.
aspects to it. But my broader point is, what do you think of, because this is definitely an emerging trend. I think the Shiloh Hendricks situation, which I know you haven't looked into much, but that was the white lady who called the black child the N-word. That whole, I did a video on it. I basically pointed out, this is a...
Hold on. For those of you that don't know, a black child was cursed out and called the N-word repeatedly by this white woman, simply because he was playing with her child's toys. This woman got exposed. I mean, she was yelling at the camera saying, yeah, I said I'm going to continue saying it. Because the man recording, I believe, was also black, or else she just was calling him the N-word as well. And, you know, her information was spread online. White people, in defense of white supremacy, not a free speech. Free speech is often used as the excuse to defend and support white supremacy. Has raised like $1 million, some fucking ridiculous ass fucking amount of money for her. And the excuse is, well, because her free speech is being weaponized against her, she won't ever be able to have a job again. Right. Sure. When in reality, it's just white supremacist solidarity. They watch out and protect each other. That's how white people always roll. They had that against us. That while they can divide and conquer us, for them, when it comes down to it, when it comes to being a white supremacist, there might be other situations where different fucking basketball teams, different fucking hockey teams, whatever. There can be other situations where they'll turn against each other. Oh, we're from the Midwest, you're from the coast, whatever fucking bullshit. Even class. But when it comes down to being racist, they fucking unite. When it comes to being white supremacists, they're united at the fucking hip. And that's what they're doing here. Now he's saying, oh, I know you haven't really heard about this, which again, at a certain point, and I'm going to repeat this, it seems like FD Signifier is weaponizing ignorance in order to continue to associate and use the kid gloves with his white muse.
A very malformed and, you know, disease-ridden psychological reaction to a real phenomenon, which is like, you know,
This is
at a certain point.
As white, have you?
I have heard of black. I was gonna ask your opinion on this. Like fatigue.
Again, because like I said before we got on, I've avoided online race discourse because, you know, I'm gonna get it back in there eventually.
It's particularly, it's a very healthy, normal.
It's not healthy at all. This is mostly just going in circles. Because, you know, because I don't think we're willing to name the thing. And so that's kind of why I want to drill down. Like my curiosity lies in what does anti...
Hold on. Isn't it hilarious that he says, I've stopped engaging on the online race discourse because we're unwilling to name the thing? Isn't that weird? Isn't that fucking weird to say? Especially when this happened.
I'm a cultural Christian. I believe in the value of religion. I'm sympathetic to Christian nationalism, much to Soy Pill's
there we go. I'll be with you for a second, and then you say
fine
like that.
Okay, there we go. That's my point.
No, I don't even want to get into it.
And he's talking about people, other people, you know, not willing to address the thing. And when his white muse tells him, I'm a Christian nationalist culturally. I'm Christian culturally and I'm sympathetic to Christian nationalism. FD immediately throws up his hands and says, nope, I'm not touching that. I want to continue this weird fetish roleplay that we're doing. I'm not touching that. I'm not ruining this. I'm not going to ruin this for myself. Okay, sure.
this is mostly just going in circles. Because I don't think we're willing to name the thing. And so that's kind of what I want to drill down. Like, my curiosity lies in what does anti-white racism or anti-whiteness feel like from your standpoint? Like, yeah, what does it feel like? What are you afraid of? What is the pain point? Right. And let me say this, and I'm not doing this for the Impression Olympics, because I love the Impression Olympics. I refuse to do Impression Olympics on your channel right now. Right. But if a perfect example, my son is
hold on, because this next story is really important. But you see what a fucking weirdo he is? I love the Impression Olympics. Like, he's getting off on this shit also. Understand that. And most kind of like wannabe, edgy, but cowardly white guys, pseudo-intellectual white dudes, are like this. Like, they get off on this. They feel intelligent having this conversation, even though they offer nothing to it. Even though, truly, in reality, all they're doing is providing cover for the extremists or those willing to embrace their extremism. That's what they're doing. And FD Signifier is aiding and abetting this normalization, right? It's no different than Hassan Piker normalizing Zionism with the genocide denier and lifelong Zionist Bernie Sanders. Excuse me. And everybody praising Hassan for being, in solidarity with Palestinians. When it's like, wait a minute, what you're doing in the long run is worse for Palestinians. Because we know for a fact that Golda Meir and the so-called left in the Zionist entity were the ones that established and expanded and legitimized the Zionist entity. It wasn't the reactionary right Zionists, because they're all right. It's a right-wing ideology. So we know that the left has always been more effective. The Zionist left has always been more effective. So normalizing them and trying to praise them to come back into power will fundamentally secure and be the nail in the coffin for Palestinians. Whereas the rabid reactionary wing of Zionism, that is easier to fight against because the whole world recognizes, like, holy shit, these people are inhuman through their inhumanity towards Palestinians. But Golda Meir, what Bernie Sanders was like, much like FD is yearning for PF Jung, Bernie Sanders was yearning for the days of Golda Meir, who used chemical weapons to ethnically cleanse, land that Palestinians were on. This is legitimately dangerous, especially when you realize the type of energy and the approach that FD Signifier has for black men in black male studies. I'm not talking about the manosphere, right? That's the bastardization of black male studies, right? It's almost a stretch to call it that because it's not anything legitimate, but sometimes they will, if they're the smart ones, will weaponize black male studies. And you know what happens? Those in the vanguard of black male studies, they immediately call that bullshit out. Immediately. Where FD has literally said, I'm not going to engage with Dr. Tommy Curry's work. I'm just going to engage with the perception of him I have online.
I play soccer for a local inner city soccer team.
All right, pay attention to the story. Pay attention to the story. It's going to come up a few more times, but this is vital. This is vital. He's talking about his son. FD Signifier is talking about his son. Now, mind you, FD Signifier almost immediately, after he blew up, his channel blew up, almost immediately put his children, his young fucking children, now I'm assuming they're like around like preteens, but his young fucking children on camera, which is like, for me, child abuse, at the very least, child exploitation. But again, it's all to generate that parasocial relationship. I don't know why this keeps changing. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure if it's me or the actual video.
A perfect example. My son is plays soccer for a local inner city soccer team, right? And inner city in Atlanta means predominantly white. Now, like, believe it or not. So he is his soccer team in general is maybe 5 to 10% black kids, which means he'll be one of 2 to 3 black kids on his team if he's lucky. The other day, a white kid during tryouts did finger guns at him and said, pew, 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 I'm blacker than you. And my son, because he's my son, said, don't talk to me like that. You don't know me or else. And this thankfully didn't cause
Base response.
Base response, right? And the reason why he had that response is I taught him very early on that he's going to encounter that type of like activity whenever he enters into a white space, which, as you pointed out earlier, is going to be a lot of his life. A lot of his life, he's going to be entering into white spaces and encountering white people who I don't think this boy, like, this is kind of, we talk about like racism. I've said in other videos that it's not about racism being evil. It's about it being like functional. So like, I don't think this little boy was trying to be mean. I don't think he was trying to be racist as it's often discussed. I think he just does not know how to talk to black people because where would he learn that under the circumstances? He does not know what will come off offensive because where would he learn that, right? But that encounter is an existential threat to my son if I don't, one, address him and let him know how to engage with that, and two, depending on how it goes with his team, address a coach or an organizer and say, hey, there are boys on this team that are microaggressing against my son, making it a hostile environment for him.
Watch this.
Right? And so like some of these terms, hostile environment.
By the way, you want the word microaggression is a microaggression towards me because it triggers me.
I do hate the term, but you know what I'm talking about. Again,
I'm going to stop it right there for a quick second. PF Jung, this white man crying about a growing trend of anti-white racism, is hearing a story of FD Signifier's son being told in a predominantly white space by a white peer with finger guns. And mind you, if in the black community, like, hey, don't play with guns, don't fuck around. Like, if you're shooting, don't do any of that, because white people will use that to feign that they're feeling threatened, right? So don't even fuck around like that. So this white kid tells FD Signifier's son, I am more black than you, which is already weird as fuck. Goes to show what type of media he's consuming, what type of household he's in, right? And FD, I think, justifiably says, hey, I don't think this kid was being malicious. I think, he just doesn't know how to interact with black people. And, he's probably, getting that type of approval in that interaction by other whites, right? Hearing this, FD says, my son handled that appropriately because I educated my son on how to handle that type of situation, to not let it slide because they know it'll grow. But fundamentally, he's going to experience this the rest of his life, and he's going to have to combat that. And, I could go talk to the coach, what have you, because this was a microaggression. A microaggression, a type of microaggression that he's going to experience the rest of his life. And in hearing the word microaggression, PF Jung immediately forgets or dismisses. Dismisses is more accurate. What FD's son went through and what he will have to continue to go through for the rest of his life in these just white-dominated country. He says, by using the term microaggression, you're microaggression against me because I hate that term. Completely missing the fucking point of the story in order to prioritize his feelings and his frustration towards, the term microaggression. You see what I'm saying here? And look at even FD's posture. No. I get it, sir. I understand what you're trying to say. And I hate that word too, but, unfortunately, that's the only word I can use. I wasn't trying to pause it here, like in the specific still. But it says so fucking much as PF Jung is laughing and FD is literally in a fucking prayer pose to PF Jung. Say, no, I understand. I get it. I hate that word too. No, we both hate that word. Immediately throwing his own son's experience under the white bus to cater to PF Jung's feelings. Is this not fucking weird? And the thing is too, I wouldn't really care about this too much if I'm not in other spaces, unrelated directly to politics, seeing FD Signifier pop up as somehow a left spokesperson. Even PF Jung jokes about FD being a Marxist, which he's not. FD is not a Marxist. FD spreads anti-communist propaganda. Let's be very clear about that. He did that on Black Liberation Media with Dr. Jared Ball and Geechee. So what the fuck is going on here? And Rob, I agree here. Rob says, never seen FD get so giddy about a white man. Fetish confirmed. We're going to have to ask his wife, apparently. According to FD. And Walker, I had a microaggression at work when I shaved my head. I was now sharp and professional. I guess before with my curly hair, not so much. Yeah. And you know, certain things we've experienced that somehow, you know, we kind of dismiss and play around a lot. I remember being cool with this professor who, tall, large man, you know, beautiful brown skin. And they asked the department, I guess, to, you know, take photos of themselves and then turn them in so that they could post posters in their buildings, like informing students of, you know, giving them a little synopsis, a little bio. And somebody in a department higher up, because he was kind of, I think he was still not tenure, excuse me, adjunct at that point, kind of questioned him about his photo. And his photo was relatively normal. The problem is, because of his brown skin, he had to face the sun in order to get his full, you know, complexion and image of his face. And he wears glasses. And if you wear glasses, and you're not sunglasses, but actual prescription glasses, you know that if you're facing towards the sun, that shit kind of fucking burns, because you literally have like these magnifying glasses, you know, making, you know, everything brighter, more clear, enhancing what you're viewing. So you're fucking roasting your eyeballs if you don't have proper, you know, protection. But he's taking this photo with his his glasses, excuse me, not sunglasses on. And he's already, you know, already has small eyes. He's a bigger guy. And so he can't really smile too much, right? Because then you're not seeing his eyes, and then he's wearing glasses or whatever, and he's facing the sun. So he's kind of squinting a little bit and trying to keep a professional face, like just not like a big old smile, just, you know, professional, like. But because he was making kind of a scowl that can be perceived as him, you know, frowning, reacting to the brightness of the sun, he was told that he looked too aggressive and intimidating in that image. And this is one of the sweetest fucking individuals you could ever run into. Like a sweetheart of a man. So vulnerable in his classes and the way that he talks and interacts with students. I admire it. And he was legitimately upset. And he was saying, like, I thought I looked good in that photo. Like, when I saw that photo, I was happy with it. And he had shared, you know, some, you know, past trauma with, you know, his dealing with his body. Yeah, men experience that shit too. And, you know, his image and his perception and his value and his self-worth. And here he is by the department being told, no, you look too aggressive, too intimidating. When there's nothing it's just because he doesn't have the giant smile to calm fucking white people down. So it's just weird. I don't know. It's weird that like microaggressions aren't perceived as, you know, for PF Jung, hearing a secondhand story about somebody complaining about too many white people in Ohio, an area that they had to colonize in order to be prominent in, was a camel that broke you know, the straw that broke the camel's back for him. A secondhand story that might have never even occurred. And yet he dismisses microaggressions, the literal straws that black and brown people have to fucking deal with on a daily fucking basis. and we have to be silent about. Sometimes we have to take it on the chin because it's like, bro, like if we were to call out and push back on every single one of those microaggressions, nobody would pay us any attention when something truly out of line that is not a microaggression, but straight up fucking racism occurs, straight discrimination. So we have to swallow and take up those questionable moments that we know what they are, we recognize what they are, because we've experienced it our whole fucking lives, and we refuse to normalize them. But we have to kind of concede to the reality that this white supremacist structure is not going to combat this. Those microaggressions are dismissed, but yet PF Jung's secondhand story about anti-white racism sentiment is the thing that broke the camel's back for him. The straw that broke the camel's back. But FD Signifier's son, fuck that kid, he said. Because I hate the term microaggression. And look how FD responds. Is this not fucking weird to y'all? Is it just me? Am I overthinking this? Am I the only one uncomfortable with this interaction? This is your fucking child. One of many experiences that he will have to continue to go through for the rest of his fucking life. And you have this white man kind of laughing and dismissing this shit. Your own fucking kid. Imagine that. Somebody kind of mocking your child's experience. And you start begging him. That's fucking weird.
Right? And so, like, some of these terms, hostile environment.
By the way, you want the word microaggression is a microaggression towards me because it triggers me.
I do hate the term, but you know what I'm talking about. Again,
vaguely, yes, I get your,
There's a lot of reasons why the terms get cooked. I'm not an identity politics guy. I understand the value of identity politics, but I know that identity.
I'm not an identity politics guy. No, it's not me. I'm not about that. I'm not about him. I'm not about identity politics. Nope. Your whole fucking channel is about that shit. Your whole fucking channel and the way you came up in BreadTube is about that shit. You have been tokenized by your fellow white BreadTubers. Noah Sampson, the guy that violates women's consent, yeah, he was calling you unk. He was calling you unk. And you're cool with that. Now you're cozying up to Christian nationalist sympathizers. You see why even then I was kind of, oh, this is fucking weird if he's letting this shit slide. Because it's a type of fucking person that lacks self-respect that is willing to allow white men to use that type of language, to be that comfortable with them.
Politics are very much cooked. So we, for not quite aligned reasons, I think agree on this, which is one of the reasons why it's good to talk about. But I'm asking this because the point I'm trying to get at is,
did you hear that though? He's scared to talk about this. Why the fuck would you be scared to talk about this?
On this, which is one of the reasons why it's good to talk about it. But I'm asking this.
Why it's good to talk about. Excuse me, that's my fault. That's why we went back. And I always say, and I don't understand why Hassan does this, there is no need to lie about the people that you're criticizing or disagree with. Because your disagreements and your criticism should be legitimate enough that you don't need to lie. I misheard what he said. I went back, realized that he meant it's good to talk about this, not I'm scared to talk about this like I first heard. My bad. Let's move forward. Because my criticism is substantial and actually has some legitimacy. I don't need to lie about anybody. I truly, genuinely believe, it's my belief, my opinion, that FD Signifier is doing some weird roleplay fetish here. And again, pulling up that Daryl Davis clip, and my apologies that the volume is so low, it seems like somebody recorded it off their phone, off the TV, and I can't find the original source. It is my legitimate opinion that FD has a fetish for these type of like weird crypto white supremacist pseudo-intellectual white men. And he's almost admitted it himself by saying, I've been, watching all of your content. I've had this type of experience with other white men before. You could even ask my wife. You are my muse. It's fucking weird. And watching that Daryl Davis clip where that young black activist says, well, you've been doing this since the 90s for decades and you only have 25 hoods, clan robes. That sounds like a fetish. And I was like, okay, I'm not off the mark about what I'm kind of like uncomfortable with here. It's not some weird internalized homophobia. It's actually a legitimate concern and disgust about the role play that's occurring here.
It's because the point I'm trying to get at is other forms of racism carry very explicit like material and existential threats to racial minorities in America. Not to say that you shouldn't feel a way when someone makes an anti-white joke or an anti-white comment in your presence, but I do want to dig into like, what is the emotional and psychological response? What is that rooted in for not just you, but for what clearly is, at least online, a growing population of white people who do not think they're racist for this black fatigue thing. So, you know,
I mean, it's just, I don't know. If someone says there's too many white people in Ohio, it's like, what do you mean too many? Like, that's like, it's a bad thing.
So were they serious?
Like, being white is a bad thing. No,
it is.
Yeah. I mean, again, and to be clear, I'm hearing this secondhand.
What happened when the Irish here were cool as fuck, and then suddenly, if you go to fucking Boston or where the fuck they dwell, are some of the most fucking racist people you could interact with. What changed? What occurred there? It was whiteness. Whiteness is what happened. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about here. Let's go back a little bit. That's fine.
Is a bad thing. No, yeah. I mean, again, and to be clear, I'm hearing this secondhand.
Got you.
But yes, he said, or she said that whoever the guy said it was like, unironically, there's too many white people in Ohio.
So
do you see, like, even he's confused himself. She said, he said that, she said that he said there's too many white people in Ohio, and I heard the second hand. But this was the straw that broke, you know, the camel's back, and now I fear a white genocide. They create their own monsters. They create their own monsters. And that's the core of white supremacy, though, right? To victimize yourself, perpetually play the victim role while committing acts of horror and atrocity and normalizing a white supremacist power structure.
Which I'm using that one example, but stuff like that.
No, stuff like that.
You see that all online all the time.
There are no consequences for making jokes about white people. There are no consequences.
Sure, yeah, and I'm not even
except for on Twitch if I say cracker, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I want to do a white racial slur, tier list. White racial slur tier list, by the way.
So fucking played out, so fucking boring, so uncreative. It's been done to fucking death. But he thinks that it's edgy and fucking cool, and this is a guy that FD calls his muse. It's fucking played out. Oh, I just thought about this great fucking idea. A white racial slur tier list. Oh my gosh. It's never been done before. It's not played out. It's totally not fucking played out. Bro. Look at FD's response. Pathetic.
Way.
I think that would be funny. I will not be a part of it, but
that's fine.
Watch it in comment.
I'm going to clip that, you saying that at the beginning of the video. I will not be part of it. Anyway.
He's telling you, I am using you as my token. I am using you. I will clip that out, whatever he's joking around, but he's letting him know through his jokes. I'm gonna use your image to help mine. And FD is like, oh, I'm not gonna be part of it, but I'll watch. I'll comment. Like, what the fuck? I won't be a part of it, but I'll support this fucking hack like bit you're trying to do.
But why do you think that? What do you think drove? Here's where I'm getting at. What do you think drove that Indian woman to say that under the circumstances? Like, what was behind that?
That white people are generally bad, and therefore it'd be better if there was less of them. It's the same thing that causes white people to say black fatigue. It's white fatigue. White people, they're oppressive. They're ignorant. They're dumb. All this different stuff. It'd be better if there were less of them. You're laughing.
And with oppressive, he doesn't he just talks about oppressive as like discrimination. What he's not acknowledging is that no, we're in actual fucking danger around y'all. We're in literal fucking danger when you guys get that bravado of being the majority. I'm very fortunate. Southern California, you know, for the most part, other than a couple pockets here and there, we still have fucking some sundown town vibes over here in certain areas. But for the most part, white people got to stay in line a little bit. Sure, they can still weaponize the police, but initially, they're going to be outnumbered in certain areas without a question. You know, I remember, I don't know if I shared this story, but fuck it. When I was younger, we were at the grocery store, Gigante. If y'all remember, Gigante, right? And I'm being spoken to in Spanish. Makes fucking sense, right? And this old white lady, I don't know what the fuck she was doing there. Shopping, I guess. Comes up to the party that I'm with. Remember, I'm being purposely vague here. And tells the individual, the adult that I'm speaking to in Spanish, you shouldn't do that. You should be talking to them in English so they learn English. We're in America. They should be speaking English. There's no need for me to lie about this. There's no need for me to lie about this. This actually happened. And it would be such a preposterous, unbelievable lie to say, we're at Gigante, a grocery store with the name Gigante in Spanish. And this old white lady came up to us saying, don't speak to them in Spanish. And the adult that I was with, who, let's just say, was always short-tempered, often quick, but very rarely without legitimacy. And that's where I got my short fuse and my inability not to speak up, no matter the consequences. If I think that I've been, disrespected or something has been said that's out of line. Starts just going off. Just, what the fuck? Don't tell me how to sorry. Don't tell me how to speak, whatever, right? And all, in English. Tells this old white lady, if you don't like it, go to Albertsons, go to Ralph's. Basically, get the fuck out of here. I've never seen an old lady zoom out with the car quicker in my life. And mind you, I was a kid. I was just in shock. I was like, what the fuck just happened? So they still have that bravado, that aggression, that entitlement, even when they're outnumbered, even when they're in an environment that is not for them, that is not, catering to them, they're still willing to do shit like that and think they can get away with it. Now imagine how they act when they're in the majority. We know how it is. So this Indian woman was saying, yeah, there's too many fucking white people here. I don't think it was so much in the reference of like, hey, it's Ohio. Why are there so many white people here? Well, we know why. It's because they ethnically cleansed and attempted to genocide the indigenous population there and succeeded in some cases. That's why they're there. And there is too many of them. But I think it's more of a reference of like, shit, I don't feel safe or comfortable because there's too many of them. And I could just be made to disappear. I mean, there's still lynchings happening that do not get reported to the, FBI. There's still hate crimes that occur that aren't being categorized as hate crimes because the whole fucking town's in on it. At the very least, the entire police department.
You're laughing at my racial trauma.
Oh, so I think that's uncharitable, but maybe not inaccurate. I think a more accurate charitable way to frame that is this is a racial minority in a highly polarized minority space for her that is like reasonably fearful or reasonably tired of how that racial minority status affects her day-to-day life. And thus, maybe in a moment of carelessness, or callousness, made a comment reflecting that status.
Okay, hold on. So that is a possibility. Mm-hmm. I would point out what you're doing is you are default making the best case scenario for that, which is fair. It could be true. I don't know this person.
Right.
would you acknowledge that it is just as likely that she?
Sorry, that's not the best case scenario. The best case scenario is like she was just joking, and your friend is a sensitive little fuck. Because keep in mind, from his mix-up of her retelling of the story, it seems like the person that reported this, allegedly, to PF Jung was a white man that was interacting with an Indian woman. And he was so fucking fragile that he immediately felt the need to call PF Jung and be like, I just experienced anti-white racism. And PF Jung was like, that's it. That's it. I'm fighting against white genocide. Holy shit. We're barely fucking 14 minutes into this hour conversation, by the way.
Made a comment reflecting that status.
Okay, hold on. So that is a possibility. I would point out what you're doing is you are default making the best case scenario for that, which is fair. Could be true. I don't know this person.
Right.
Would you acknowledge that it is just as likely that she maybe she's rich, is completely, you know, in all practical senses, certainly has a much higher status, all things considered, than like your average poor Ohio white person who's, you know, and she just doesn't like white people. Like, you acknowledge that there's a large number of people like that.
Do you think poor white people aren't fucking racist? In fact, and I've seen this, when you have wealthier, higher status whites mingling with working class or poor whites, in order to compensate for the wealth disparity and the class distinction, poor working class whites will turn up their racism around these elite whites for the purpose of saying, oh, look over there. Sure, you might be disgusted with me. Sure, you might find me repulsive. Sure, you might think that I'm bringing the race down. But remember, we can all get together and hate the black and brown folks. They're the real enemy. Be more disgusted with them. Oh, look, some of them are coming up. And now you're forced to interact with them. Isn't that gross? When they would a million times rather, and you see this about Donald Trump, be around other rich fucking people, regardless of their ethnicity, race, or background, than be around poor people. But he's trying to use this whole like, oh, this woman, she's probably wealthier, probably has a higher fucking status than the white people around her.
Well, justifiably have white fatigue.
So let's take justifiably out. Okay, I feel like that's
sure,
right? And I don't know if I want to get into a justifiable bigotry conversation at all ever.
Sure. But because then we'd have to talk about Italians, and don't get me started on that.
I thought no, you're Irish.
I'm a mutt. I'm Irish.
Yeah,
I'm not Italian. I'm Irish.
Yeah, you had a really good joke
Eastern
about Italians.
Yeah, that's right.
In the document you're talking about.
Correct.
But so like, yes, I can admit that and recognize that there is a realm where bigotry. So like any halfway decent race identity politics scholar will often use the somewhat toothless cop out that anybody can be bigoted, right?
Which is true.
Which is true. Well, it's the reason why that often gets that statement is often taken poorly is because it's used to deny the concept of anti-white racism, because racism is inherently structural, whereas bigotry is insert a number of things that people feel and believe about people who are different.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, if you're asking me if she can be bigoted and that was rooted in bigotry, yes. And I don't approve of bigotry. I don't.
He disavows.
You've never heard me make like really lazy cracker jokes in my videos.
I'd laugh if you did, for the record.
Because he's not
They're
funny.
They are funny,
No,
right?
FD is not funny.
That was the joke. I think I made that joke in the video. Is that to be white means that racism is always funny, and that's kind of the thing that I'm. All
right. Well. To counter your definition though, it's I'm articulating my perspective here. I'm semi trying to like also articulate the people who do go down more the like, no, well, whites got to stick together now. It's like, that is forever a stupid position. Mm-hmm. But I believe in the way that you dismantle the calls for white unity is to, this has always been my point, rob them of their valid talking points, right? Like, This is
But
why
how they're
it's
talking
partly
to
why
us.
I lean into like, of course, anti-white racism is real, and I don't qualify it. And if someone didn't know who I was, they'd be like, oh, is this guy like
He's
a
one
white?
of us.
Yeah, is he a white supremacist or whatnot? And it's like, no,
Yeah.
but I'm unabashedly taking the true things I've seen in my own life, I see everywhere, and robbing it from them. So then I can, in the same breath, just as confidently be like, yeah, and the calls for like white European solidarity, guys. It's like, have you seen the history of Europe? We killed the fuck out of each other. This isn't like the people who say coexistence is impossible or whatever, or like black fatigue. It's like the amount of, real quick, just on this example, the one that shows up always on Twitter is it's fights at the airport. It's like, there's a fight at the airport. Look who it is. It's black people. It's like, this is my go-to example all the time. It's like, I am a Southwest A-list preferred member. Okay, I've gone through the airport dozens and dozens of times, thousands upon thousands of people, thousands of them being black. Not once ever in any circumstance have I seen anything like that. And if I were to base my views off Twitter, like, oh, you can't go to the airport in Dallas or whatever, right? It's like
a dangerous place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like not even once have I encountered that. And it's just like, and so all these nut jobs, existence or coexistence is impossible. It's like, it's insane. But in order to properly address them and properly rob them of whatever sentiment is pushing people towards their perspective, is to be like, yes, of course, the people who say, yeah, there's too many white people in Ohio, like that's fucking ridiculous. And it's just, and it's a feelings thing, you know, it's a vibes thing. And like to be told there's too many of people that look like me in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Not that it would be better, like, you know, anywhere else, but it's just like,
it's not, you know, New York City.
Yeah, but I mean, even that's my point. Even then it would be bad, but like Ohio, it's even worse.
Comedic. So,
yeah.
So like in many ways, I
Again,
think you're.
FD refuses to address the elephant in the room. How did Ohio become a hub for whiteness? How? They were fucking native to Ohio, that's fucking for sure. But this is why it's so important for people to dismiss, disregard, to not address, to not acknowledge indigenous people here. And this is, again, my basis for settler realism is they're talking about race relations. They're talking about anti-white racism and, you know, comparing it to, you know, black fatigue and the experience of black people, because that is the true baseline that we see in this country. This is why I'm against how Norm Finkelstein uses Nat Turner, his rebellion, his willingness to do what was necessary and what should have been done throughout the entire country in opposition to white supremacy. Using that, you know, slave revolt, comparing it to Palestinian, to October 7th and Palestinian resistance. Because again, like I mentioned before, it's disrespectful to enslaved Africans and their descendants, because Palestinians were not in chattel slavery. And second, it's disrespectful to the indigenous population here. Because just like Palestinians are indigenous to Palestine, we have indigenous people here that resisted through armed struggle. So acknowledge them and use them in the comparison. But people like Norm Finkelstein won't. Why? Because then they have to address and acknowledge the fact that this is also a settler colonial project that needs to be dismantled, and that land back should be implemented across from fucking New York City to fucking Hawaii to Alaska, right? Redistribution of land is the only thing that fucking matters in this world. That's the only thing that matters, because the land is, you know, the most essential thing. Because that's where you're going to get the resources from. But these people have to overlook the indigenous population, because then we're actually talking about the fact that PF Jung, his hurt feelings over hearing a secondhand story that might have not even happened about there being too many white people in Ohio, is an accurate criticism. Yo, like, why is there so many white people here? Why are there so many European descendants here in Ohio? Oh, because they, you know, ethnically cleansed and exterminated the indigenous population, ran them off their fucking land. That's why there's too many of them here. That's why you're in fucking danger being around too many of them, because you know what was required, what type of violence was required for them to obtain that land and become the majority. And if you get out of fucking line, there's nothing that can stop them from doing the same to you.
overall framework and logic is reasonable. The thing I think we fight on, the thing that I think people who would judge me for my appearance here would question is the internal mechanism of why anti-white racism is a salient point within those spaces, right? And the challenge becomes, and I don't have a really good, I don't have, like I'm developing my analysis on this beyond just simple, you know, the obvious, beyond simple, I'm trying to develop an analysis
beyond the simple critical race theory.
Beyond critical race theory analysis, right? Critical race theory analysis, and this is not to undermine the framework of how that is understood, but I also know that just doesn't have any legs in actually engaging with white people, right?
I'm gonna put a pin in that. Well, continue your point.
You see that? He confirms that he's catering to whiteness. He's saying, well, I'm trying to develop something outside of critical race theory because white people are uncomfortable with critical race theory. So I'm developing something that will cater to, make white people more comfortable. And fundamentally, that is the role of FD Signifier. What was the first thing he said to Hassan Piker when he showed up to his house for a stream? Oh, your multi-million-dollar home in West Hollywood isn't actually that big. And somehow that doesn't contribute to gentrification. Somehow somebody that proclaims to be, you know, part of the struggle for working class people, somehow that makes it okay for him to purchase a multi-million-dollar home in West fucking Hollywood when he very easily could have, for the same amount of money, gotten a small kind of apartment complex and house activists and organizers on a fucking revolving door in order to bring people even internationally around or just nationally around the country to LA, one of the world's hubs, in order to lay a foundation for national and international organizing? Nah. Why would a socialist, not communist, depending on who he's speaking to, multimillionaire that profits off the struggle, ever conceive of doing something like that? And remember, the Black Panthers, there were people that had just held regular jobs. That was their role, to work regular jobs and use the money, the income from that, to pay for housing and you know, food and whatnot, to house the people that were organizing around the clock. And they were both equally respected because it was recognized that you can't have one without the other. So what was stopping Hassan Piker from doing the same? Hey, I'm making fucking millions of sitting on my ass and normalizing Zionism through Ethan Klein, Bernie Sanders, and Sam Cedar. The very least you can do is fucking house some organizers, some activists. Nope. Then he won't be as rich. Then he'll lose money. FD is here to normalize these fucking white people and their grift.
So
I do want to put a pin in that though.
Because my question would be like to this person in this experience is what about their white? So like, could we create a standard where racial minorities in America were held to account for anti-white jokes and anti-white sentiment?
But even that, it's not about holding anyone to account. I don't care about this person; they're irrelevant.
Oh,
it's just that I would like that sentiment to not be normalized. Now you can say the only way to do that is by holding people who do it to account, and I don't necessarily think that. I think it's like you can destroy memes. Memes can be destroyed simply by reducing the social value around it. And it's not necessarily through stigmatization, but it's like pronoun jokes. You know, like, what are you going to identify as an attack helicopter? It's like, even though that was very prescient, I would just point out 10, 15 years ago, it's like, if someone makes that joke, it's like, it's like, that's the dumbest thing. You know, it's like, it's not like, well, we need to hold people who make those jokes to account. It's just like, it's not interesting.
So I think we agree on this then. It's kind of like, how do we, so there's a reason why, and that kind of, this is where I'm trying to like develop grounded theory with you right now.
Yeah.
There's going back to the example of my son. There's a
grounded theory. Hold on. We're going to bring up a video up right now from the conversation that PF Jung had with this Christian nationalist. The fact that PF Jung, in the age of Donald Trump, is saying, I don't want anti-white racism to spread. I want to stop this meme. Comparing it to transphobic propaganda with the whole attack identifies as attack helicopter. Do you see how he's trying to victimize himself? When white people, when white supremacists, open white nationalists, open Christian nationalists have never been in modern history so fucking embraced, so emboldened than now. It's fucking ridiculous. All right, he's gonna bring up his son one more time, then we're gonna jump over to another clip.
Reason why I've taught my son how to respond to, you know, microaggressions or whatever term we want to use, insensitive racial jokes in his environment. And it's because though in that situation, those jokes are precursors to actual material and existential harm. And in this woman situation, that's not the case. Now, that doesn't make it okay per se, right? It doesn't make it a it doesn't make it an optimal way to engage in racial.
And Walker, FD, the armchair theoretrician. Theoretician. I love that. Theoretician.
Discourse or trying to figure out addressing racial problems.
Hold on. That's going to bother me. I hate cuando se me traba la lengua when I find something funny. There we go. No, I'm just trying to fucking hear it, man. There we go. Yeah, theoretician. Why'd I do this? I'm telling y'all. I may understand certain things. I understand quite a bit. But that pronunciation sometimes, man. Maybe I don't use the Spanglish that often. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't notice it. Maybe I don't notice it. But the fucked up part is there's certain words, and if you're around enough people that you know share your first language, you know you could spend hours just chilling talking about all the words that you mispronounce or can't pronounce or have been avoiding, dodging. Whenever I'm talking to anybody from like LA County or just Southern California, I guess in general, I always ask them, what does the word Pizza sound like? If you know, you fucking know. Let's move on. Back to FD using his son and PF Jung dismissing his child's experience.
It doesn't make it an optimal way to engage in racial discourse or trying to figure out addressing racial problems in America. But the problem I often have with even entertaining anti-white racism is the very premise puts them on the same playing field. And even like adopting that premise, I've already seeded a ton of really important like ideological and just interpersonal talking points, let alone realities. Sure. And so not that like that's in and of itself is a problem. I kind of lost where I was going with the follow up there.
Well, because this is exactly, so this is my question is like, because you and I are having this conversation, which is not, like you said, not necessarily, not the norm. I'm certainly the furthest right person you've talked to, which is hilarious, by the way, because you should meet some.
I talked to Sitch and Adam.
Yeah.
FD talking to Sitch and Adam. Sitch and Adam is another fucking level of. It's this other crew of enlightened centrists or centrists that pretend not to be white nationalists, and yet they can never stop talking about DEI this, DEI that.
Actually, so this is my question is like, because you and I are having this conversation.
Hold on, it's a little further back or forward. Sorry.
I've already seeded microaggressions or whatever term we want to use.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, sorry.
There's a reason why, and that kind of this is where I'm trying to like develop grounded theory with you right now.
Okay, here we were.
There's going back to the example of my son. There's a reason why I've taught my son how to respond to, you know, microaggressions or whatever term we want to use, insensitive racial jokes in his environment. And it's because though in that situation, those jokes are precursors to actual material and existential harm. And in this woman situation, that's not the case. Now, that doesn't make it okay per se, right? It doesn't make it it doesn't make it an optimal way to engage in racial discourse or trying to figure out and addressing racial problems in America. But the problem I often have with even entertaining anti-white racism is the very premise puts them on the same playing field. And even like adopting that premise, I've already seeded a ton of really important like ideological and just interpersonal talking points, let alone realities. Sure. And so not that like that's in and of itself is a problem. I kind of lost where I was going with it.
He was actually on a good roll there. On a side note, again, only because I'm fair. I just noticed this. PF Jung has a great fucking hairline. Great fucking hairline. Because I'm assuming he's a little bit like he's well into his early 40s. Great fucking hairline. Respect it. I get distracted easily. So he was making a kind of a good point, but wrong. Because FD says, well, I brought up my son's situation because if that is normalized, that will eventually lead to actual harm and my child being in danger. Unlike this woman who was actually not in any harm or danger. How the fuck would you know? What if she genuinely felt uncomfortable by the amount of white people around her and the way that she was being treated, just the fucking vibes, the energy around her, the side eye, whatever, what have you. And she's like, holy shit. Like, she was surprised or not expecting there to be so many fucking white people. And she can't kind of turn to anyone else of color for any level of like, all right, maybe they'll support me. Maybe, I'll have some backing if anything gets out of line. But if I'm the only non-white person here and some blunt racist decides to say something, is anybody going to defend me? Is anybody going to, advocate, have my back, show me any support? Or am I just going to have to take this fucking bigotry head on? That can always escalate into violence. So I don't like that FD, in catering to his white muse, PF Jung, automatically dismisses this, Indian woman's concern. But I also agree that in acknowledging this white supremacist, or excuse me, white anti-racism, by acknowledging it as legitimate when there's never any fucking threat to them in any way or regard, that you are kind of putting them in equal footing. That's why it's not even worth acknowledging as anything more than a white supremacist dog whistle. These white tears are meant to defend white supremacy. Now, I should have pulled this up earlier, but fuck it, we're here now. So PF Jung talked to Christian nationalist Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson is notorious in the fucking scene and the debate scene for it just being so fucking bad faith. And I understand why PF Jung likes him so much, because Andrew Wilson is like if Jordan Peterson wasn't a fucking crybaby. Just imagine that. And instead was a fucking chain smoker. So they're gonna go over, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is how quick was PF Jung to dismiss the microaggression that FD Signifier's son experienced. When he mentioned this white lady, this white supremacist lady, using the N-word against a young black child, he was trying to downplay it, right? The money raised towards her white supremacy was, downplayed. Here's a conversation that he's having with a Christian nationalist and Andrew Wilson. And they talk about this very exact fundraiser for this woman.
You donate to Shiloh Hendrix's GoFundMe.
Sorry. Let's just pull this up in case nobody's seen it. Let's use this one.
Also new here tonight at
Nope.
10, the Rochester City of office to take
Nope,
slurs
let's just watch
racially motivated before
Shut the fuck up and let's just watch the video.
Field Park in Rochester.
Oh
So
my
the
god, you're not gonna
disorderly
actually play
police
the
department's
fucking video? Why the fuck would you link me to this? Holy shit. That is infuriating. Was it this one?
Did you call him a child? Did you call the child the word? It is my own business. You call him a. Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again? Okay. All right, that's what you say.
A Minnesota woman was caught in a viral video slinging a series of racial slurs at an autistic child and a man at a playground in Rochester, about 90 minutes from south of Minnesota. I wonder what type of fucking tattoos she has. I always look at white people's tattoos. Always look at white people's tattoos. You're more than often than not, you're gonna see some fucking white supremacy symbols. And yes, I include that Viking shit. So yeah, that was the video. The woman, Shiloh Hendricks, admitted to hurling the N-word at a 5-year-old boy she allegedly caught rifling through her bag at the playground. Sharmaik Omar, who filmed the incident, pressed the blonde woman and asked if digging through her belongings would justify using a racial slur against a child who is autistic.
She was going to deny it and walk away. When there was a video and she saw that I was recording, she doubled down and even tripled down now.
Hendricks has since asserted she was a victim of an attack, claiming online that the viral video has put her family in jeopardy. Let's see if we can zoom into this sleeve. Can't really see what it is. Let's find out. But yeah, million. You know, I think they've at least raised $1 million for her. I just want to see if anybody has noted this. Nah, looks too shitty to tell. And I love when people are like, "Oh, you're just searching for something to be racist about." Or to call them racist over, right? And it's like, nope. Like, unfortunately, I've seen this one too many times where if you pay attention enough to white people's tattoos, especially when they look like this, you'll see something, you'll find something. I've talked about this story before when I worked at a coffee shop, an alleged coffee shop. This guy went from calling himself Rick to calling himself Thor, and I'm like, well, that's fucking weird. I wonder why that is. And sure enough, one day he wore shorts and sat down, and you know, the black sun was there. What else do they call it? The Sonnen Rad or some shit like that, right? Yeah, but this was tattooed on them. This was on their kneecap. And I was like, ah. Of course. That's why whenever they started, and this was used by the SS, right? Whenever you start hearing like white people embracing their ancestral roots, you're like, ah, it's a fucking red flag. Especially if it's some Viking ass Norse mythology shit. So it's,
if I had,
yeah.
Well, the question is, did Andrew Wilson donate to Shiloh Hendricks GoFundMe shit? Let's see. Come on, come on. Bro, this shit's so annoying. Let's restart.
How much money did you donate to Shiloh Hendrix's GoFundMe?
If I had,
yeah,
I would not ever publicly admit that I did.
Me neither, Andrew.
Yeah, or the
Carmelo Anthony
large amount of money that it would have been if I had, because I don't.
He's insinuating that yes, he donated a large amount of money, but he, being a Christian or whatever, or just out of cowardness, would never admit how much he donated. And then PF Jung is like, yeah, I would never acknowledge that as well. I would never admit it.
Don't believe that we should give to charitable causes and then try to take credit for things like that for the purpose of pious signaling. I've never disclosed what I give to any charity on behalf of anybody. I just don't do that unless I'm pressed to the point where somebody's saying that this guy never gives nothing to nobody. And sometimes that shit gets leaked, right? But I'm not a pious signaler when it comes to charitable contributions. I never have been. So
notable charitable causes like Shiloh Hendrix.
Wait a second. These people have been doxxed. They're probably never going to be able to work again. And a woke mob is literally trying to get them, assassinated, politically assassinated. I don't think that they deserve that because she shot off at the mouth at a kid one day. It's like, that's fucking bullshit.
And a 5-year-old child.
That's bullshit.
Racial slurs.
And so it's like, yeah. And people are like, who's she going to make $1 million? Like, yeah, but they're probably never going to be able to fucking work again. So yeah, it's probably going to take
She's probably going to be a right-wing sweetheart moving forward. At the very least, a right-wing influencer.
$1 million for these people to live. They're going to be able to fucking work again, probably for the rest of their life.
Probably. Right.
You don't got to tell me. Anyway,
how much?
I told you I'm not donating. Or I told you I'm not telling you. I just said I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
No, I think it would be funny.
You won't tell me if you donated either?
Exactly.
That's great.
What I should have done is I was going to donate to Shiloh and Carmelo and then screenshot it and post it to Twitter and say, this is peak centrism.
And he's joking around about donating or equivocating, donating money to this white supremacist woman who used racial slurs against a 5-year-old autistic black child to a case where we're not sure exactly what happened, whether or not it was self-defense, where this black child ended up killing a white teammate in his football team. Now he's claiming self-defense, and the reason why he has a GoFundMe is in order to provide him with legal funds in order for the trial to be handled appropriately. To have the appropriate legal defense. It's not advocating for the murder of white children. It's saying, hey, we don't want this white supremacist structure to wrongfully incarcerate another black child, and we want a fair trial. That's what the fund is for. Not in defense of using racial slurs and being a white supremacist, especially against a black child.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean... I do generally think, as a rule of thumb, you should not call a black child the N-word.
Sure. No dispute. No, you should call children really any names, right?
Yeah, but true. But also,
I don't consider that one to be any worse than any other one.
I do. It's a little worse. It's a little worse.
That's what he's talking about. That's who he's talking with. This is who he's cozying up to. I don't consider calling a child the N-word any worse than calling a kid a shithead. Okay.
Worse to call a black child the N-word. If she had said
the black child, well, here's the thing. Actually, I think it would be worse if she had just said
no. If she had just said, you little shit, no one would have done anything.
Yeah, but that's the point, right? The point is the contextualization is like, from the child's perspective, they don't know it either way. Actually, probably would have been worse.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably worse for the child. Yeah, this whole thing blow up in their face.
The thing is,
the blowback. Actually, holding and calling out white supremacists is worse for the people that they victimize. Well, why is it worse? Oh, because the attention that it's getting. Oh, okay, it's not worse because it's emboldening white supremacists with this fucking racist ass GoFundMe. This is who FD Signifiers calls his muse.
It's just like, ultimately, if it wasn't the perfect storm of stabbed in the chest, white guy stabbed in the chest a week earlier, and it gets $500,000 based on the political ideology of he was just black. That was it. That was the whole ideology there. Nobody knows that this was self-defense at all. They just gave him $500,000. That's what they did.
$500,000 for what? For his legal defense, you fucking white nationalist. Not for him to go live the high life. Not for him to go live the high life for being a fucking racist. No. For his legal defense to help determine whether or not it was self-defense. This motherfucker wants all black and brown people to have public defendants.
So it's like, okay, so you're going to do that. But this woman's going to spout off at the mouth, and you're going to fucking go to her house and you're threatening to kill her and rape her and do all these horrible things.
Yeah,
like,
see that's worse. How it's diminished? How it's diminished? Oh, she's just spouting out the mouth. No, she was being a fucking racist. She was saying racial fucking white supremacist shit.
Yeah,
that's worse than calling the child the N-word.
Yeah, I think so. And so what we were doing there, what people are doing there is setting.
Well, they're both fucking. Wait. Let's just be very clear. Again, PF Jung, FD Signifier's muse, his white muse, saying, "Oh, those threats against her life are worse than her calling this child the N-word." Well, that's assuming that calling that child the N-word is not a threat against his life. That's assuming that we don't have a long history of white women accusing black children, black young men, black men of, you fucking name it, X. In this case, rifling through her purse and resulting in the death of a black child, a black youth, or a black man. Because to the pigs, to white supremacies, there is no distinction between a black child, a black youth, and a black man. They're all equal threats in their eyes. So because this, I believe his last name was Omar, this man filmed this and recorded it, it's safe to say that he saved that child's life from that situation escalating. Yeah, and Walker, you're right. Anything Ukraine related is a red flag tattoo, 100%. You're right there. Sorry, I just saw that. But to dismiss, again, PF Jung aiding white supremacy by downplaying and dismissing the real physical threat that this woman was initiating it through her white supremacist rant, that was only known because the man stepped up to record it, not threatening her, not doing anything. But who knows what could have happened to the young black child if that black man was not there? Who knows where she would have taken it if he wasn't recording? Because she could have very easily called the cops and be like, "Oh, he's trying to steal something. He's rifling through my purse." Very easily. If she's using racist language like that, the N-word, at a child, come on now. Is it a reach? Is it a step too far to say she could have called the cops if somebody wasn't recording the way that she was fucking having this racist rant? So that is more of a fucking threat to that child's life in that moment, because they're actually physically interacting, or she's verbally assaulting him. That could have led to a physical assault and the death of that black child, because we know how the pigs handle autistic people. Not add the fact that he's black, right? And then online harassment towards a white supremacist.
They're sending a pretty strict message. They're saying, look, you have every business and right to critique this woman for what she did. Nobody's saying you can't. You do not have any business threatening her livelihood, her family, destroying her entire existence. And we're going to make sure that if you try to do that to people in the future, they walk away fucking millionaires. Now, that sounds like a pretty epic deterrent, yeah?
Look, did you see my video on that topic?
No.
I literally saying, hey, if you try to hold white supremacists to account in any way, we're going to make them fucking filthy rich. If you are racist enough to where you're going to have people upset at you, angry at you, needing to vent out their frustration towards you, probably in an unhealthy manner, but nonetheless, just venting, working to reward them with riches. Because that is like typical white supremacist shit. Oh, you're a fucking racist that is being called out for attacking a fucking child? We got you. Here's a couple $1,000,000.
I said, this is very clearly a malformed psychological reaction to a very real problem, which is exactly what you're talking about. The white guilt and cancel culture and all, and like Jesus. Everyone walking around with the fucking Eye of Sauron in their phone. I think that's gross. Would I personally donate? Once again, no comment. I do.
There you go. That's who FD Signifier sees as his white muse. Somebody not willing to even comment whether or not he would donate to Shiloh Hendricks, this white supremacist woman who verbally assaulted a black autistic child with a racial, rantings that literally put that child's life at risk if it wasn't for somebody stepping up, a black man, and recording it for the child's safety. This is FD Signifier's new bestie. This is why I'm calling FD Signifier the new Daryl Davis.
Follow there.
I have because this is exactly so. This is my question. Is like, because you and I are having this conversation, which is not, like you said, not necessarily not the norm. I'm certainly the furthest right person you've talked to, which is hilarious, by the way. Because you should meet someone.
I talked to Sitch and Adam.
Yeah,
and understand, like, I remember, I think I told this story. I used to be like the type of guy to like argue with white supremacists online all the time. Like once upon a time. So like this is familiar story.
But not actually organized. Remember, he doesn't organize. He doesn't actually get off his ass and do something. He's just a fucking Twitter warrior.
That's fair. Well, white supremacists are not the best that the whites have to offer. Okay, the whites have plenty great to offer. All right, no. Bo Burnham, J-Reg. But that's sad that those were my first two. Not J-Reg. That was good. But wait, hold on. But my point is, what is your goal with? I mean, this is just a broad question. Like, what is the goal with for you? Because you're a very significant influencer when it comes to discussing these issues. Because, like you said, you don't want to. If you're going to compare anti-white racism to anti-black racism, let's say, if you even use the same labels, you're putting them on the same playing field, which has its costs. Whether I disagree with them or not, like the costs are there. The question, though, is looking at it from a more consequentialist perspective of like, what is the practical reality of us discussing it? It's like, do you want white people to become more white conscious or not? Like, would it be good if white people were more like, no, actually, like white is right and all that shit? Because I would argue that's not great.
Right.
And part of whether how do I say this? Whether within the framework that you are operating in, your analysis of anti-white racism not being as real as anti-black racism is logically coherent, correct in different ways.
Hey, I finally found you. I'm busy at the moment, but I'm down to talk whenever. Listen, FD, I'm down to do that. You let me know. I will clear my schedule, but I'm a blue collar worker, bro. So I work weekends. My schedule is usually free. Wednesday morning to afternoons, Thursday mornings to afternoons, and Friday mornings to afternoons. But I'll leave it up to you. I'll work my schedule around just for you. And I hope that you at least have an hour to spare. I haven't seen your content other than stuff like this in a while. Except I've been a big fan of Justin Hunt for a long time. In fact, I've mentioned it here. His old Hip Hop DX videos are something that inspired me to start streaming when I thought about making video essays. And I thought it was really fucking annoying that you showed up to that stream not having heard most of the fucking diss tracks that were dropped. But let's focus on this. I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's have that conversation. I'll try to be civil. But I'm a fucking hothead. And I despise normalizers, compradors. And I hope you can understand and respect that. No need. I'm usually free anytime after 11, most days, and definitely Friday mornings. I'll see if next Wednesday morning works. No, we could do Friday. We could do Friday. Yeah. Look, you're the fucking big dog here. You're the big dog here. You're the one making money off of this. We can have that conversation. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit shocked. That I'm going to be speaking to you before I get to speak to Dr. Jared Ball. Because that was my, I think, like, big. I was like, all right, let me get this channel going. And then I'll ask, because I hate wasting people's time. And maybe it's the imposter syndrome. I don't know. But maybe I'll ask Dr. Jared Ball to come on and we'll have a conversation. I've been very fortunate to be able to talk to organizer from CESPA. So that was cool. I was nervous as fuck because that's a legit organizer. Doing the actual fucking work. It's a little bit more calming talking to content creators because I don't really respect this. Check out any old stream and I say when I stream more than fucking 4 hours, I'm embarrassed of myself. But I'm assuming, FD, that you found me because I was, I think, the only fucking person that went out of their way to share your conversation with PF Jung and be like, yo, you're kind of a little hesitant here. No, I understand. Oh, Dr. Jared Ball has been nothing but gracious with me, just, you know, following me and interacting with me online. What I'm saying is that I was waiting on growing this channel, putting in more work before asking for his time because I actually value what he does. And I wasn't intending that to be, you know, a diss towards your work, but I guess it is. And I'll own that. But yeah, so you've been kind of spicy. I alluded to you later in this video. You know what? And I appreciate you at acknowledging that. I thought you did. But I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no way, because FD, if anybody can't read that, says, you've been kind of spicy. I alluded to you later in this video. I appreciate that. You're not the first big name to do that. And it surprises me. It surprises me because Sam Cedar, who, and we could talk about this because your friend Hassan Piker is normalizing this guy, or normalizing liberal Zionism and upholding Sam Cedar as the exemplary Jewish ally to Palestinians, which he is not. He's a liberal Zionist, and his interactions and platforming of Peter Beinart, who was the poster boy for liberal Zionism, demonstrate this amongst other things. Sam Cedar actually followed me on Twitter even before this channel had the few hundred followers that I had, because I was the only person calling him out for being a Zionist normalizer. And then he magically stopped following me when some anarchist-barian TYT bootlicker called him out for like following me, what have you. So I guess, you know, it's a smaller fucking ecosystem than I expected. I don't see a lot of brown faces in this area, so I'll play up that DEI role, I guess. But if you know anything about me, I'm always talking shit about Chicano nationalism, which would be interesting. I don't know if you know much about that. I think that'd be an interesting conversation. For sure, if you give me the space, I would like to have some time to talk about the anti-blackness in the brown community, because that is, let's put it this way. I've been enraged that Kendrick put Lefty Gunplay on GNX, and only because I still work my fucking 40 hours, bro. Like, if there's gonna be a video essay that I do, that might be the first one. But yeah, appreciate you checking it out, and I appreciate the offer. I'm down. FD, I saw a comment you had when I talked to Dr. Sandiata a few weeks back. I have to look that up. On Twitter or on your stream? What are we talking about? Hey, bro, honestly though. What the fuck, dude? You gotta talk to Dr. I mean, I'm not gonna get involved in. I am, but I'm not. Because there's part of me that's kind of like, hey, don't be the brown dude that's stepping into black business, you know? I get that. I get that aspect of it. But then nobody's acknowledging this shit. You know, when your white friend, Noah Sampson, well, by the way, bro, why? Anywho, when he's out here calling straight up for escalation that he's not willing to do himself, that we don't have the organization around to facilitate the safety and protection of people carrying out direct action. And from what I know, Noah Sampson doesn't even organize in any way. Let's just save it for the conversation. We'll just save it for the conversation. We'll just save it for the conversation. Part of me is like, I don't want to give you too much. That's true. But I think let's just have that conversation. I'm going to continue doing this. Appreciate you for reaching out. I'll look up the comments that I made in that interview. If you could let me know if it was on Twitter or on your actual, on your channel. But that little side rant was all for me to say, if I'm spicy, bro, the way you've been, you've been addressing Dr. Curry has been a little weird, especially when I see this. All right. FD, you could jump on now. I'm on OBS. I don't know if I could have you jump on. I wouldn't know how to do that. No, I'm seeing them. Right now, they showed up as FD Games, but before that you were just as FD Signifier. Let me see how I could do this. Because I'm on OBS. It's not the best way to have a... You know what? If you're down, let me pull up... You think it's a troll? No, it's FD Signifier and it has a check mark and everything. Like if I click on it, it'll pull up. Yeah, now it's as your gaming channel. But for a minute you were just as FD Signifier, which has a check, so I'm assuming it's legit. Do I have a Discord? I still have Discord, no? Let's see. Yeah, I thought so. I was gonna say, you're gaming, bro. You're a little... It says viejito, man. You're a little older. What do you game? No, you're all good, Lana. Appreciate it. I'm going back and forth between my phone and PC now. Oh, you're just showing off now. All right. Yeah, let me pull up Discord then. Or let's make it easier. Is it cool if I end this stream, FD? And then we could jump on. I'll send you a link for Restream, because Restream is just going to be easier for me to use in this regard. Let me DM you. I'm going to DM you on Twitter the link for the Restream, and then I'll just start a new stream. Just talking with FD Signifier, I guess. I'll call it that. Debating the new Daryl Davis. You gotta let me know if you like that one or not. All right, let's do that, FD. I'm gonna end this stream. We made it 25 minutes to FD's. You don't have access to your Twitter? Blue Sky. Are you on Instagram? I'm not on bro, I'm not wide enough to be on Blue Sky. I'm sorry. FD, do you have Instagram? No, wait. I'll wait, homie. I'll wait. All right, is it cool if I send you the... Did you end up switching your... Yeah, you did. Okay. Because I know for a minute you were... Back when I used to watch your stuff, I know that you had like a different username for every fucking social media platform, which is some funny ass old man shit. I'm going to message you. I'm going to send you the link there on IG. I'm going to end this stream, y'all. We're going to have an interview, conversation, debate, whatever the fuck you want to call it, argument with FD Signifier. We'll be right back. Appreciate it, FD. I'm going to DM you right now.